In a heartbreaking royal twist no one saw coming, Prince William broke down in tears after discovering that Queen Camilla had destroyed the last gift Princess Diana ever gave him, a fragile, heart-shaped locket filled with love and memory. Hidden for decades, the keepsake symbolized a mother's eternal bond with her son. But when Camilla quietly ordered its removal and destruction, what followed wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a national shockwave. Cameras caught William holding the shattered gold in his trembling hands. One heirloom, one moment, and a royal bond broken beyond repair. This wasn't just loss. It was devastation. The shattered heirloom. A vintage clip flickers to life, draped in softness, nostalgia, and the unmistakable warmth of 1996. Princess Diana cradles her young son against her, guiding a heart-shaped locket to rest against Prince William's chest. Her voice is gentle, promising to keep me close, always. In that moment, a mother's love is sealed in gold and memory. Cut to moonlit present day at Kensington Palace. William stands alone in his study, holding the same locket. It's small, nearly fragile. Cold light glints off its filigree. The camera lingers. His thumbs caress its surface, tracing the initials carefully engraved on the back. The silence is heavy, his lips pressed together. His eyes glisten with a mixture of gratitude and aching sorrow. Voiceover breaks the stillness, soft but chilling. Tonight, when Diana's last gift is shattered, the future heir is torn apart. It's more than a statement. It's a promise of heartbreak yet to unfold. This locket isn't mere jewelry. It is a living bridge between a son and the mother he lost too soon. It's a tactile anchor to a past filled with laughter, lessons, and love. And standing there, William isn't just facing the end of an object. He is facing the unthinkable dismantling of that emotional tether. He exhales, lips barely moving. He almost smiles, thinking of her. But the locket doesn't belong to anyone else. Not to the palace, not to history, and certainly not to someone who never asked for it. The guard at the door shifts uncomfortably. They both sense it. This night will shatter more than metal. The locket's aura, so serene just moments ago, now pulses with tension. This opening is the calm before the storm, a storm that will tear through a family's foundation and set history colliding with grief. Gifts, legacy, and meaning. Some heirlooms echo in halls of power, but the locket Diana gave William belongs to his heart. It made a silent, solemn cameo during her funeral, a token of maternal love that clasped her uniform, visible to all. And then, it vanished from view, but not from William's mind. Years later, that locket found sanctuary in a royal vault beneath Kensington, hidden beneath cedarwood. There, it lay in a velvet-lined compartment, untouched by time or curiosity. To William, it wasn't a relic. It was a reminder that no matter the titles he wore, he remained her son. Royal historians speak softly when they address its significance. They call it a symbol of personal sacrifice, a moment of humanity in the weighty spectacle of monarchy. Some say it draws attention to the fragility of fame. Others argue it's the purest expression of a mother's influence. Inside the palace, it's more than a box of gold. It's a shrine, an object of private pilgrimage. William often visited it late at night, sitting in the hush of his study, reflecting on her voice. Calm, guiding, hopeful. He credits the locket for giving him strength through adversity. It doesn't need to be seen. It just needs to exist. But to the palace, and to Camilla in particular, it carries something less pure. A public reminder of a painful past, a past that both critics and fans still debate. And to break it might seem like the only way to close that door. In this, the locket is both treasure and threat. It is a memory that binds him to a mother who can never be replaced. It is also a reminder of everything the monarchy survived and asks itself to forget. Now, as darkness deepens, the stage is set. The heirloom lies at the center of a dilemma far greater than gold. It is about family, identity, and whether memory can coexist with progress. Camilla's controversial move. Kensington Palace will say the meeting with artifacts and curators was routine. But behind closed doors, Queen Camilla made a decision that shook walls. She stepped up to a display case containing Diana's locket. The curators stood by in uneasy silence. Their hands trembled on delicate glass lids. Camilla placed her hand gently on the case, studying it from all angles. Her voice was calm, neutral, but carried steel. It stirs nostalgia and prevents moving on. One curator dared to object. "It's a personal item, ma'am, not public property." Camilla didn't look away. "It belongs to William," she said carefully. "But as long as it remains intact, it will bind him to a past I no longer can share." With a final nod, she signed the order. The locket would be removed, not archived, not relocated to a museum, not locked away. Destroyed. Each word felt like a verdict. It was catastrophic. To many, the order was pure ruthlessness. To others, it was cold pragmatism. A monarch's wife deciding that symbols matter more than stays in the vault. The curators remained silent, aware that their role didn't include moral outrage, but they understood tragedy when it walked through the door. Camilla's rationale remained consistent. She believed the monarchy was haunted by ghosts, by Diana's legacy, so powerful it rivaled the crown itself. She saw relics not as memories, but as shackles. And in her mind, the monarchy had to break free. The order went through, and just like that, centuries of history trembled. An object so small became the flashpoint for a family reckoning will erupt soon and transform the palace forever. William learns the truth. William stepped into Camilla's private suite. He wasn't expecting emotion. He wasn't seeking confrontation. Yet the room felt different, ominous. The curtains hung heavy. The velvet-lined tray on the table glinted in low light. William's eyes closed tightly for a moment, and then he saw it. The shattered locket, fractured gold, entangled chains, the engraved heart, now broken. He reached out, lifted one of the larger pieces. His jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to Camilla, who stood quietly. No apology, no words. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His voice barely cracked as he said, "You didn't have the right." A pause. Cameras might have caught the shards, but no lens could capture his heartbreak. Silence roared in the walls. William held the fragments to his chest, tears mixing with anger. "She trusted me. Not the palace. Not its legacy. She trusted me." The words broke him anew. Camilla watched, silent. The locket lay in pieces, forever. William's world unstitched. Tonight, he lost more than gold. He lost a tangible piece of a past that shaped him. William's heartbreak. Now alone in his study, William sits before the wreckage. The piles of shattered gold look absurdly small, too small for the weight they carry. He cradles the largest fragment in trembling fingers. No aids, no cameras, just him, the silence and the awful emptiness. He whispers, "She trusted me." A single tear rolls down his cheek. Then another. Soft sobs threaten. Not a breakdown, just grief. Bitter, unsparing, raw. He places the piece gently against his heart, as though it might stitch his soul back together, however briefly. The walls, once regal and protective, now feel like they echo with loss. William thought he had let go, but he hadn't. Not fully. Not where it mattered. And to have it taken, destroyed, felt like betrayal. A betrayal he never expected and never forgave. He is no longer just a prince, no longer just a portrait of duty and composure. He is a son, undone by grief and rage. And as the night stretches on, one fact becomes painfully clear. You can break the gold, but you can't shred what's in someone's heart. Camilla's justification. In the quiet aftermath of William's heartbreak, palace insiders began to whisper, Camilla had her reasons. She wasn't reckless, she was deliberate. And her justification? It was chilling in its logic. Behind closed doors, Camilla explained to senior aides that the locket had become a symbol of obsession, a magnet for grief that never allowed the monarchy or William to move forward. "It's not a betrayal," she reportedly said. "It's release." She believed holding on to relics like Diana's locket created a shadow too vast for any future queen or future king to stand in. In her mind, the locket wasn't love anymore. It was a weight. She emphasized her role as queen was to protect the institution above all. That meant hard choices, brutal ones, even symbolic ones. Camilla argued the monarchy couldn't thrive if it remained haunted by Diana's eternal sainthood. Her private words to a confidant said it best. "If we keep looking backward, we'll never rule what's ahead." Some aides defended her fiercely. They admired her clarity. She wasn't cruel, they said. She was committed. But others, particularly those closest to William, couldn't understand. To them, it wasn't about politics or legacy. It was about love. And Camilla's justification, no matter how polished, sounded too much like erasure. Camilla remained unshaken. She believed Diana's memory had become less mother, more martyr, and that myth, in her view, needed softening. But the world wasn't ready to forget Diana, and neither was her. Son. Palace tension rises. In the days following the incident, Kensington Palace became a palace divided. Staff exchanged glances in corridors, whispered behind doors, and moved carefully between two camps, William's and Camilla's. Security around William's residence was quietly increased. His team began cataloging all personal heirlooms, ensuring that no other items from Diana's past could be misplaced or reallocated. The message was clear. This would not happen again. Meanwhile, Camilla's staff focused on damage control. Every appearance she made was tightly managed. Smiles were shorter. Speeches were guarded. Her usual confidence now carried a thin veil of caution. An internal memo from the Lord Chamberlain's office urged total discretion. No leaks, no reactions, no commentary. But royal silence was wearing thin. William's heartbreak had been witnessed by too many, and Camilla's actions, though officially justified, sparked too much emotion. A quiet but growing fear gripped senior aides. Had this one object, this one act, cracked the fragile peace of the post-Diana monarchy? And worse, was there any way to undo it? Public backlash begins. As the news reached the public, backlash came swiftly and loudly. Restore Diana's. Locket surged to the top of global trends. Thousands of posts poured in within hours, mourning not just the locket, but what it represented. Diana wasn't just a memory. She was a movement. Morning shows debated the ethics. Royal correspondents sat across from historians and psychologists, dissecting every possible motive. Was this about moving on or wiping clean? Asked one anchor. Another stated bluntly, "You don't destroy a mother's final gift. You don't rewrite grief." Memorabilia collectors issued outraged statements. A petition demanding the monarchy issue a public apology gathered over 100,000 signatures in one weekend. News outlets across the globe replayed footage of Diana with her sons, overlaying it with stories of the locket's destruction. Children born after Diana's death, even teenagers, were speaking out. "I never knew her, but she always felt like she cared," one post read. The sentiment echoed across generations. Diana's memory still lived, and now it felt under attack. Palace press teams scrambled, but nothing silenced the storm. In trying to end the myth, Camilla had reignited it. Biographers and historians weigh in. As the days passed and public emotion surged, the situation moved beyond viral outrage. It entered the halls of academia and the minds of the most respected royal scholars in the world. The monarchy, always shielded behind tradition and protocol, now faced something more elusive and damaging, an intellectual reckoning. Renowned biographers, historians, and cultural critics emerged from their usual diplomatic tone and spoke out with sharp, unfiltered insight. The act of destroying Princess Diana's locket was no longer seen as a mere emotional misstep. It was, in the words of one royal biographer, an attempt to control the narrative of modern monarchy by erasing the emotional evidence of a woman whose influence remains unmatched. Another prominent historian went even further. In a special roundtable aired across multiple news networks, he warned, "This is not just about gold. This is about historical integrity. It's like tearing out a page from a living book, an irreplaceable page." He reminded viewers that Diana wasn't just a figure of compassion, she was a cultural milestone, a global symbol of truth, vulnerability, and reform within a rigid system. The locket, a seemingly small keepsake, had become a vessel for everything she meant to the people, and to her son. The academic community began comparing the destruction of the locket to other infamous instances in royal history where efforts were made to sanitize the past. From the quiet removal of Edward VIII's controversial letters to the sealed files surrounding Queen Elizabeth's wartime correspondences, history had seen such selective erasures before. But none, they claimed, had been so deeply personal. The debate then shifted to Camilla's motives. Was this an act of emotional necessity, as some of her supporters claimed, an attempt to protect the future monarch, William, from perpetual grief? Or was it a calculated assertion of power, erasing Diana's lingering presence that many still felt outshone the queen consort herself? Some experts tried to see Camilla as a reformer. They said she may have hoped to help William become king on his own terms, unshackled from comparison, pity, and pain. Yet others weren't so forgiving. They pointed out how Diana's name was still the loudest in royal polling, her legacy still the most cherished in global memory. And perhaps, just perhaps, that legacy was simply too powerful for the palace to peacefully coexist with. In private journals leaked later, one historian noted, "The locket is now more powerful in absence than it ever was in presence." Indeed, that's what became clear. In trying to erase Diana's memory through a small act of destruction, the palace had instead amplified her story, reignited public empathy and cemented her place as the enduring heart of the modern monarchy. And as experts continued to dissect every decision, every motive, and every silence, one truth remained unshaken. Diana's legacy wasn't in a locket. It was in the people, and no hand, however royal, could take that away. William's private resolve. In the midst of public uproar and palace chaos, Prince William pulled back, not out of fear, not out of weakness, but out of sheer emotional necessity. Cameras no longer followed his every step, and aides gave him a wide berth. The palace, buzzing with whispers and shifting loyalties, had become a minefield. But William didn't disappear to mourn. He stepped back for a purpose. He needed clarity, focus, action. In a quiet, candlelit room deep inside Kensington Palace, William summoned a select few, the closest advisors, friends who had weathered his darkest storms, the ones who knew the difference between his silence and his fury. There were no royal press officers present, no senior courtiers, just people he trusted with both his strategy and his pain. He looked them in the eyes and said, "We're going to preserve her memory, in our own way." His voice was steady, but his knuckles were white as they clenched a small velvet cloth holding the broken locket. What followed wasn't a vengeful tirade, it was a plan. William had no interest in waging war inside palace walls. He didn't want a showdown with Camilla. He didn't want to spark another media frenzy. But he refused to let his mother's legacy be destroyed quietly and buried under the excuse of moving on. He began sketching out something different, something Diana would have understood. A private memorial tucked into the countryside, perhaps on royal grounds, where the public could remember her for who she truly was. Not a myth, not a martyr, but a mother. A woman of grace, honesty, and relentless empathy. Alongside that, he floated the idea of commissioning a replica of the locket, crafted not to replace the original, but to honor it. With input from Diana's longtime jeweler, he envisioned it engraved not with royal emblems, but with something more personal. Perhaps one of her quotes. Perhaps a new photograph inside, of William and his children. A new link in the chain. There was also talk of a scholarship fund, a literacy initiative in her name. William wanted to channel his grief into something bigger than pain, something that spoke louder than anger ever could. He would not confront Camilla. He would not drag his stepmother into the spotlight. But in this quiet, calculated moment, William decided something far more powerful. That legacy, when fueled by love, doesn't need titles or crowns to endure. The gold may have been broken, but the bond, unshakable, unbreakable, unforgotten. Camilla's risk and reward. As outrage simmered, Camilla maintained a steely presence behind closed doors. She understood that her actions were explosive, but in her mind, perhaps necessary. She convened her closest advisors and curators in a private salon adorned with regal portraits. There, she defended the decision with unwavering conviction. This is about preserving the monarchy for tomorrow, not yesterday. Her argument centered on a powerful idea. Relics can enslave memory. Camilla spoke of modernizing the royal image, making space for the next generation without being overshadowed by the past. She believed destroying the locket was not erasure, but liberation, letting William step forward in his own right, unburdened by relics of grief. One aide left the room visibly shaken. Others nodded with cautious respect. Supporters hailed her for courage and clarity, while critics whispered that she had crossed an irreversible line. The palace, in turn, became an arena of power, between tradition and transformation, between public love and private strategy. Camilla's gamble was bold. If her plan succeeded, she would become known not just as a consort, but as a queenmaker, a strength behind the throne. But if it failed, it could fracture the family she had vowed to protect and perhaps damage the very institution she had worked so hard to uphold. As intense as the controversy was, Camilla pressed forward. With each public appearance, she wore a quiet armor, accepting criticism but unshakable in her belief. Sacrifice is sometimes the blood price of progress. Ripple effects on royal narrative. Camilla's decision triggered a deep simmering conversation about how the monarchy handles memory and power. Voices that had been cautious before now spoke boldly. Memorabilia collectors condemned the destruction. Online commentators called it a primal act of control. Royal scholars weighed in on documentaries. Relics, once so personal, were now public symbols, punishable even, if they didn't align with the institution's narrative. People asked, is the monarchy sanitizing history? Was this only the beginning, destroying the sentimental until only the sanitized remained? Comparisons were made to past royal missteps, Mary Tudor's treatment of half-siblings, Edward VIII's abdication, secrecy around George VI's illness. This, they said, was history being rewritten now. In Windsor and Buckingham, internal recalibration began. New policies were drafted. Private heirlooms would now be catalogued, locked, and off-limits, unless formally gifted. No more private collections. Camilla's order stirred modernizing shifts in royal protocol. Some praised the move. Others whispered that it further eroded transparency. Meanwhile, the public pressed on. Every royal tour, charity event, or public handshake now flickered with subtext. Would relics be next? Could personal grief survive inside roles that demanded perfection? Or would public sentiment force a restoration of lost intimacy? In the backdrop, a new question took form. Whose story is the monarchy telling, and whose is it silencing? The locket had been small, but its destruction was loud, and it had opened a door to questions that would follow the crown for years. Cliffhanger and call to action. Late into the night, William sat in his private chambers, the shattered locket resting on a velvet cloth before him. Silent, but charged with meaning. He gazed at the delicate fragments, gold, memory, history, all in pieces. Across from him sat a small file, a photographic replica commission request nestled between letters and condolence cards. It was a gesture of intent, a promise he would tread carefully. He picked up a pen and began drafting notes, memorial ideas, quietly worded outreach to the public, plans to honor Diana's memory discreetly, but definitively. The resolve in his eyes was palpable, but pained. Outside the room, palace lights dimmed. Staffers whispered of calls between aides, discussions with legal counsel, scouting for diamondsmiths capable of crafting an exact replica. The palace had already been briefed. No public showdown, no scandal. This would be done quietly, thoughtfully. What happens next hangs in suspense. Will William quietly commission a replica and preserve his mother's legacy out of public view? Will Camilla, sensing the backlash, step in with a conciliatory gesture, perhaps reuniting William with a memorial piece of his mother? Or will this escalate into a rare palace confrontation? The next chapter in this royal drama is written in fragments, both literal and emotional. In a world where tradition meets transparency, where grief meets governance, the stakes are more than jewels. They are about stories, about trust, about who gets to be remembered and how. Now we ask you, should William restore the locket in private? Should Camilla step forward with a public apology or a compromise? Is this the end of personal relics in royal hands? Share your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned. The Crown's story is still being written, and its heart remains fractured, waiting to be mended. One locket, one legacy, forever gone. As William mourns and the world watches, the question lingers. Was this royal protection or erasure? The tears may dry, but the wound remains. Diana's memory now lives louder in silence, and the monarchy? Forever changed. Stay tuned. The fallout has only just begun.